Hello, I'm Kristen Oaks-White. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture. Avery Davidson will join us a little later in the show. Grain sorghum has made a big comeback here in Louisiana this year. The colorful crop is an alternate grain that some farmers were hoping would be profitable as prices have fallen for corn and beans. As TWILA's Neil Melanson tells us, this pretty crop is having a pretty tough year in the markets too.
If you're driving around Louisiana right now, you may have spotted this crop from the road and wondered what it was. This is grain sorghum, and if you think it's pretty, farmer Fred Collins, who grows it, agrees.
I've always liked the color orange, you know. So when it goes from green to yellow to orange to that dark red, it's an attractive crop.
There's a lot more of it in Louisiana this year. Grain prices are down, and farmers are looking for ways to pick up every dollar they can, according to LSU Ag Center economist Dr. Michael Delaberto.
Sorghum has always been a good rotational crop for our producers in Louisiana. The input cost and management intensity are lower than that of corn. And for the past 3 years, we've seen sorghum acres in the state of Louisiana exceed 25,000 acres. Now, the exception was last year with the heat and the drought-related stress.
Collins agrees, saying that the barge basis, or the money farmers can get from Louisiana's advantageous position on the river, made it attractive to grow.
You get the price of milo based on the December corn crop, and it's usually about 10 cents better than the corn price is for July. But when they're giving you a positive basis as high as 10, 20, as high as 60 cents this year for a while, it actually was beneficial.
All this ground used to be cotton, but the prices are even worse for that crop, and it's no longer in rotation here.
I had made a trip up to Tunica here last week and gone to an auction, and all the little towns, you can see the cotton gins closed down, and there'd be a Dollar General and a filling station, and that's about it. So the rural economy is really suffering right now.
Even for mainstays like corn and beans, which Collins also grows, times are tough. In fact, he says it's one of the worst he's ever seen.
Everybody was kind of hesitant in hopes that maybe there would be a little bit of rally and we'd get back to 550 or 580 or whatever we are accustomed to for the previous years, and instead it just kept dropping. So everybody kind of caught, I know particularly me, I got caught with my pants down in that I just didn't have any corn booked. And so it's one of the worst years of marketing that I've had in a lot of years, because I was thinking that the price was going to do a little better.
The one good thing this year is the crop is looking good. Collins says the sorghum, corn, and beans are all looking better than last year at least.
We caught enough rain here recently, and we put extra fertilizer after the crop was up just to kind of give it a boost, and they're almost lapping at this point, even though they're planted in the middle of June. So I'm pretty happy with the way the beans are coming on, and all the early beans look really good.
Sorghum trades on the December corn charts on the Chicago Board of Trade, which lately has been below $4 per bushel. Well, speaking of corn, I got a chance to talk with Dr. Delaberto about corn and bean prices. He says the big issue in the markets is a big supply of grain out there that can keep getting bigger without either a major disaster or a major buyer coming into the market. We can expect these lower prices for some time to come.
We're going to see a big crop this year, and even though we're seeing increased usage, exports are going to be up again. Ethanol production is expected to grow. We're seeing feed use. That demand looks pretty good. We're still expanding that balance sheet. Supply is continuing to outpace demand, so we're going to grow that balance sheet for a second consecutive year, and that's why you're seeing some of this pressure being put into the grain complex. On the soybean side of things, again, national yield bushel per acre of 52 bushels is where USDA's got it. The critical month for soybeans is going to be August. So I think we know a little bit less about the yield potential of soybeans as opposed to corn right now.
The next big USDA World Supply and Demand Report will be out on Monday, August 12th, so we'll have a better idea of the crop size and conditions then. And Kristen, it was just 10 years ago that Louisiana set the record for the average soybean yield at 57 bushels per acre. USDA's estimate for the national soybean yield this year, 52 bushels per acre. So in just 10 years, we've caught up with that, and there's just so much grain out there right now.
There's so much grain, and the problem is that we're in like a Goldilocks type scenario in that last year the crop was terrible, but prices were decent.
Yeah.
This year, everybody I've talked to has got a great crop, but the prices are just
in the tank.
awful.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are. And I mean, it's corn, soybeans, rice has come up, sugar's stabilized, but it's just for the grain farmers out there, it's just an ugly scenario. And, we talked to Fred Collins there, who hadn't marketed some of his stuff, and I just don't see how these prices are going to come up in the future.
For short of a disaster, which I don't see happening in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Sounds like this is the ride that farming is going to take.
It is. The only good side that I see is that the Farm Bill usually comes out in years when prices are really good. So this year, hopefully, Congress will listen and have a better support network for our farmers out there.
We can hope. Neil Melanson, thanks. An extension of the Farm Bill is likely to happen this year. That's according to Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry, Dr. Mike Strain, who says with the House in recess and the Senate to follow, the odds of getting one passed in an election year is extremely unlikely.
The discussions we've had, as you know, last year they told us don't worry, it'll be there by November. Then this year, so don't worry, we'll have it by November. Now they're telling us, it looks like we're going to have to push this off till the next Congress, a new Congress, to start the Farm Bill, and it starts over again. And so we need to get this done, but I can tell you that what's coming from Washington, both from the staff and from the ranking members on the House and Senate Ag committees, is that it's very unlikely they're going to pass a Farm Bill this year. There's very little time left on their calendar, and we're going to have to get an extension. And I think the extension you're going to see will be that it will be extended until probably November of next year.
The current Farm Bill extension from last year expires September 30th of this year. In Franklinton, there's a new sheriff, but he's not new in town. Jason Smith just wrapped up his first month in office as the top cop in Washington Parish. In a true grassroots movement, the longtime farmer with no political background unseated a three-term political giant. He sat down with TWILA's Josh Meeks to talk about why he ran for the office.
Well, it's not something that I ever really wanted to do, if I'm honest. I never had any political ambitions. I retired from the Marine Corps as a lieutenant colonel in 2016 and moved back to my family's farm in Mount Herman.
Jason Smith never imagined he'd be here, sitting behind the desk of the sheriff of Washington Parish. But a unique turn of events led him here. It all started with a lawsuit.
Fall of 21, I got served with papers saying that I was being sued by the sheriff of Washington Parish for failure to collect and remit sales tax on our farm-raised and farm-sold products. Of course, I knew that was clearly exempt in the Louisiana law, so I thought it was a mistake and approached the sheriff's office, and they were dead set on pursuing it. So I took it to court, and in the summer of 22, the judge ruled in our favor pretty quickly. And then we started to get a lot of attention. We were on the front page of the Advocate and Times-Picayune. And people started asking me to consider running for sheriff.
So he did, and just a year later,
longtime Sheriff Seal is unseated with a 60 to 40% final vote.
As a farmer and retired Marine Corps infantry officer, he's more than qualified for the job. But it's not about titles for him.
This is not the most important thing I've ever done. It's not the thing that I'm going to say is my proudest moment. So if I'm not reelected in 4 years and I go do something else, that's fine.
He believes his election was part of a changing tide. As people grow weary of long-term politicians, Smith was a breath of fresh air.
I think people are tired of being told that everything's fine, and they can clearly see that it's not.
With farming and the Marine Corps in his blood, he knew he had to get straight to work. That included getting to know his department and going through rigorous law enforcement training, including getting tased.
Taser, taser, taser. Lower down.
Back in Mount Herman, his farm is in good hands until he can get back to it one day.
When the business picked up, I was put in contact with a guy who's the brother of the girl that was running my social media stuff for the farm. We set up a website, we do online ordering and all kinds of other things. And so he's basically been running it since then.
For now, he's hoping to bring new accountability to an office that in his eyes had fallen to the wayside for many years. And just like on the farm, he just wants to work with people who can get the job done.
I think that's one of the things that we struggle with across the country that farmers have got figured out, is that it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your last name is, doesn't matter whether or not we like each other. There's things that have to get done. So either you're going to help me get them done, or I'm going to find somebody else who will help me get it done. But we got to get things done. That's the most important thing.
At the end of your term, what do you want people to say about you?
That we got things done, that we got things done.
Reporting from Franklinton for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Josh Meeks.
Washington Parish has one of the worst opioid overdose rates in the country. Sheriff Smith says one of his priorities for his term will be to get his parish lower on that list. Well, if you look at the skies above Louisiana cropland, you're likely to see a yellow airplane making big turns and then swooping below the trees. This week, TWILA's Carl Wiggers takes us to Franklin Parish to meet one of those pilots in this edition of How You Grow Louisiana, sponsored by First South Farm Credit.
I mean, I get to do this every day.
A Franklin Parish native, Dustin Bailey was raised around airplanes. His father, also an ag pilot.
I grew up around it. I mean, going to the airport every day with him as a kid, you know, just me and my cousin would run around the airport, just being around airplanes. I mean, I just love it, you know.
But in February of 2002, the Bailey family experienced the tragic loss that they prayed would never happen.
Something went wrong. It flipped over. I think it went in reverse, but you know, I don't know.
It was just a few years later when Bailey decided to follow in his father's footsteps and take to the sky to carry on the family legacy.
Kind of like my hero. I just wanted to do it too, you know. I mean, once you get into this, it's just kind of in your blood, and you just love being around it, flying and working around the farmers. And my grandpa farmed, so I mean, Daddy would take care of his farm and fly, and it's just a family business.
That family business is what connected Bailey with Danny Ezel, a grain farmer in Madison Parish. Ezel says ag pilots like Bailey are crucial to his farm at times when he can't do the job himself.
So many times the weather dictates what takes place, and it's always good to be able to call these guys, and they can do so much so fast now, and it's helped us save a lot of time, save our crops.
Saving a crop comes at a cost. These airplanes are expensive. So is the support staff and team. This airport, it's an expensive business. So when Dustin wanted to buy this business from his former mentor, it proved quite difficult.
We was going to bank after bank after bank, and basically getting a door slammed in my face.
And that's the first step that I helped Dusty, was to get that support and those people that I knew would stand behind him, and they have.
So he called Mr. Ronnie Parker over there at First South, and Mr. Ronnie come over here and met with me right here at this location. We sat down with the plan that we had, and you know, First South, Mr. Ronnie, they bent over backwards to help me. And they believed in me probably when I probably shouldn't have believed in myself, but they did.
All right, boys, here we go.
I get to do things that only people could dream of. And I got a good group of people that love to do it with me, so we have fun.
And that boy has kept that legacy going, and he's not let the past hold him back. He's still looking ahead, and he's looking to build his legacy. And I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him.
How You Grow Louisiana is brought to you by First South Farm Credit. First South is how you grow Louisiana. After the break, Avery sits down with the CEO of the Committee of 100 to talk about how agriculture fits into their plan for growing Louisiana's economy. And later, it's arguably one of the best smelling parts of the state, a tour through LSU's Botanic Gardens after the break.
You're watching This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
Agriculture is big business for Louisiana. It's also a place where we have the opportunity to expand. Joining me now is the CEO of the Committee of 100 for Economic Development, Adam Knapp. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on TWILA.
Hey, great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about what C100 is, because I know y'all shorten it for ease of saying.
Yeah, it's been around since the mid-90s, and it was put together to have a group of executives who want to be involved in the future of the state, a way for them to collaborate, regardless of party or part of the state or what sector their company operates in. It's a way for them to work together on big issues facing Louisiana. And its history goes back to the 90s, but it's very much a going concern of how do we get involved today, roll up our sleeves, and get things done.
What is the goal of C100? What are y'all trying to do?
You know, originally it was concerned with the functions of state to try to make, business, attributes flow into government public policy. Today, and the reason why it's called Committee of 100 for Economic Development is this unifying principle or interest that the state's economic growth is everybody's concern, regardless of where you are and what your sector is. You want to see more jobs in Louisiana, and that's something we've been interested in, whether that's working on major public policies that lead us to that, or directly involved in helping with economic development projects for Louisiana or by each region of the state.
So where does agriculture play a role in economic development for Louisiana?
So I think if you think about, it's a great question. So if you think about Louisiana's economy, we know that it's driven by energy historically, by healthcare, by tourism, and almost everyone would put agriculture as one of the top three, one of the top four sectors that's really driving the state and has for its existence. And fascinating to see that continues to be true even as the opportunities may be changing in the future about what those best opportunities look like. So we've been excited to see that regardless of the part of the state, agriculture continues to play an important role in the state's outlook.
So where do you see things going when it comes to economic development through agriculture? What's the future there, and what can Louisiana Farm Bureau and our volunteer leaders do to help bring that economic development on?
So what we've seen is more and more in agribusiness that there are opportunities that continue to evolve. We've seen since the pandemic in Louisiana significant investments in timber projects across Louisiana, warehouser expansions, projects in Oakdale to continue to build fiberboard projects or new sawmills that have been going up in North Louisiana. And so while those expansions have continued, I think what we wonder about is where are there new opportunities on the horizon? So for example, as energy continues to look for bio-based projects, that they're going to need feedstocks. And so that means they're going to be looking for all sorts of either waste product or current products that might be able to be converted into energy projects. One great example of this actually happened at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber over the last few years, where we saw a company that wanted to use wood as a feedstock to making a biodegradable plastic. Basically making what we use as a normal single-use plastic bottle, using wood as the feedstock instead of oil. And so projects like that, while they have been announced and found their home in Louisiana, those continue to create really interesting opportunities for products to get to market in untraditional ways or new ways that might be exciting for the future.
Well, you spent a long time at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. Right. Are you enjoying this new role, and what do you like about it so far?
So in the last 6 months, one of the things we made a goal for ourselves that I really have had a blast doing is we got involved with the governor's office and the new Secretary of Economic Development to help pass legislation this past session that helps to reorganize how LED operates. When we're at our best, we want to marshal the resources of business leaders across Louisiana, find some really important things that need to change in Louisiana that have been done in other states perhaps or not been done before, but we want to do them in Louisiana. So that bill has been just signed into law by the governor in early June, and now the Secretary of the Department of Economic Development is really putting that into motion. And so that was something that I was really proud of and excited about. Is in our first just 8 months since coming on board, had a chance to really get involved with a key piece of legislation that came forward this session.
Well, if someone wants to get involved with C100, how do they get in touch with you?
It's great. Go to our website, c100la.org. And as a nonprofit, we look for members to be involved and to help us drive the vision that we have for Louisiana.
Well, Adam, I thank you for coming on This Week in Louisiana Agriculture and talking with us about economic development. So if you would like to learn more, you can visit our website at twilatv.org. We'll link you over to the website that Adam mentioned just a moment ago. Kristen, back to you.
If you're looking for an escape to the great outdoors, the LSU Ag Center Botanic Gardens at Burden might be the place for you. Yes, they do have shade from these 100-degree days. As TWILA's Alexandra Kling shows us, it's full of blooming surprises for its guests year-round.
The LSU Ag Center Botanic Gardens features beautiful and colorful plants along with different landscaping. However, this place is more than pretty plants and a variety of trees. A lot of plant-based research happens right here. The LSU Ag Center encourages guests to get hands-on with nature right in the middle of the city. Senior Landscape Manager Jason Stagg says their Blushing Rose Garden is a big attraction on the grounds.
It's a collection of numerous trialed roses that have performed well here. A lot of hybrid teas to get that great fragrance.
Gardens aren't the only thing here. Director of the Ag Center Botanic Gardens, Jeff Keeney, takes us down a path through nature.
We have about 3 miles of trail systems, and when you walk on these trails, you'll be able to see all of the different types of native trees. So you'll also learn about the natural Louisiana landscape and ecosystem.
It's a shady walk and a great place to walk your dog. Their location lies in the heart of Baton Rouge with 440 acres on Essen Lane, right next to Interstate 10.
Sometimes you can hear a little bit of the interstate traffic noise, but because of that location, we're extremely accessible. It's just that a lot of people don't realize what they're exiting past when they get off the interstate and turn immediately onto Essen Lane, because the further you move back in the property, especially when we get back to Windrush Gardens, you're going to notice how much quieter it is back there.
Windrush Gardens features the work of self-taught landscape architect Steele Burden, who is most known for his work around LSU's campus and around Baton Rouge. This property even includes other plants and sculptures that play a role in getting children exposed to the outdoors and gardening.
And so we do have a children's garden. And in the children's garden, we also have a separate section called the pollinator garden. And the reason why I love the pollinator garden is because it is so beneficial to so many of our native insects and the European honeybee. From very young to very old, we have something for everybody, whether it's families playing in the pollinator children's garden area, the Oak Grove play area, or walking the trails with your family.
Reporting from the LSU Ag Center Botanic Gardens in Baton Rouge for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Alexandra Kling.
The gates open at 8 a.m. and close at 4:30 every day. The Botanic Gardens are free to the public, but there is an admission fee to get into the Rural Life Museum. Still to come on TWILA, a touching tribute to all of Louisiana's agriculture labor force. It's now time for this week's TWILA Boost, and we're saluting the farm workers who help put food on our tables. For Farm Worker Appreciation Day, Louisiana Farm Bureau Labor Chair Katie Ramagas Nunez penned a thank you note to those who do so much for us.
From family farms, we thank you, farm workers. Thank you for working to keep the family farms running and in business. You help us plant, cultivate, harvest, process, and haul our crops so that we may continue to be proud to say we are a family farm for generations to come. From parents and families, we thank you, farm workers. Thank you for providing a safe food supply for our families. Even when you leave your families every day and sometimes months at a time from other countries to help provide the safest food supply on earth. From consumers, we thank you, farm workers. Thank you for keeping the grocery store stocked. In the last few years of uncertain times, consumers saw firsthand how farmers and farm workers worked tirelessly to keep the grocery store stocked and the food supply chain open. On behalf of everyone who's ever eaten, and from the bottom of this farmer's daughter and mother's heart, I sincerely thank you today and every day.
That does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll check in on this year's rice harvest, a stark contrast compared to last year's drought. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you know exactly when we put out new content. For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.